They are letting him disrespect Eddie Guerrero's memory, and nobody's talking about it. While Rey Mysterio spent decades honoring his best friend with reverence and respect, his own son is out here using Latino Heat's legacy like a cheap costume he can put on and take off whenever it suits his heel character. And the worst part? WWE is encouraging it. They are booking it. They are profiting off it. But here's what really makes my blood boil. Half the wrestling community is actually defending this disgrace, acting like Dominik has somehow earned the right to invoke Eddie's name. Let me ask you something right now, and I want you to comment your answer below. Does Dominik Mysterio have any right to channel Eddie Guerrero's legacy, or is this the most disrespectful thing we've seen in modern wrestling? Drop your thoughts in the comments because this conversation needs to happen. Now, before the Dominik defenders come for me in the comments, let me be crystal clear about something. I'm not talking about a young wrestler paying tribute to a legend. I'm not talking about honoring someone who helped shape the industry. What I'm talking about is a privileged second-generation wrestler who's using one of the most beloved figures in wrestling history as a prop for his villain character, and somehow we're all supposed to pretend this is acceptable storytelling. Dominik Mysterio has been incorporating Eddie Guerrero's mannerisms, his music, his catchphrases, and his iconic movements into his performances. The lowrider entrance at WrestleMania, the "I lie, I cheat, I steal" shirt, the shimmy, the entire aesthetic of Latino heat being weaponized for cheap heat. And yes, I said weaponized, because that's exactly what's happening here. Eddie Guerrero's legacy is being used as ammunition to get Dominik booed, and that should make every wrestling fan uncomfortable. Here's where it gets even more complicated, and this is where I need you to think critically about what we're watching. Eddie Guerrero was Rey Mysterio's best friend. He was Dominik's godfather. There's a deeply personal connection there that cannot be ignored. In 2005, WWE ran one of the most controversial angles in company history, with Eddie claiming to be Dominik's biological father. It was uncomfortable then, and it's uncomfortable now when we see those layers being peeled back for storytelling purposes. But let me hit you with this question, and I want 100% honesty in the comments. If Eddie Guerrero were alive today, would he approve of how Dominik is using his legacy, or would he be disgusted by it? Really think about that before you answer. The defenders will say, Eddie would have loved this. Eddie was a heel who lied, cheated, and stole. This is exactly the kind of heat-generating performance he'd appreciate. And you know what? Maybe there's a microscopic chance they are right. Eddie Guerrero was a performer who understood the business better than most. He knew how to blur the lines between reality and fiction. He knew how to make people feel something real. But here's the difference that nobody wants to acknowledge. When Eddie Guerrero lied, cheated, and stole, he did it with a level of charisma, talent, and in-ring ability that made him one of the greatest performers of all time. He earned every single accolade, every championship, every moment of respect he received. Eddie Guerrero didn't have opportunities handed to him because of his last name. He fought through addiction, through being fired by WWE, through being told he wasn't good enough, and he clawed his way to the top of the industry through sheer willpower and undeniable talent. Now compare that to Dominik Mysterio. I'm not saying the kid has no talent, he's improved significantly since his debut. But let's be brutally honest about something. Dominik Mysterio got his job because of who his father is. His first WrestleMania match happened because of the Mysterio name. His continued push, despite being incredibly green, happened because of nepotism. And now, he's channeling the legacy of one of the greatest wrestlers ever, and we're supposed to believe he's earned that right? Tell me this, and drop your answer in the comments below. How many years does someone need to be in the business before they've earned the right to invoke Eddie Guerrero's legacy? 5 years? 10 years? 20 years? Or does having the right last name and connections automatically grant you that privilege? The frustrating part about all of this is that there's legitimate storytelling potential in Dominik's connection to Eddie Guerrero. If WWE wanted to tell a respectful story about a young man grappling with the weight of his godfather's legacy, about the pressure of living up to impossible standards, about the complicated emotions of never really knowing someone who was supposed to be a father figure, that could be powerful television. That could be meaningful storytelling that honors Eddie's memory while giving Dominik depth as a character. But that's not what's happening. Instead, we're getting surface-level heel tactics that use Eddie's iconography as a shortcut to generating heat. It's lazy. It's manipulative. And worst of all, it's working, which means WWE has no incentive to stop doing it. Here's another angle that nobody's discussing. Rey Mysterio has spent his entire career since 2005 honoring Eddie Guerrero with grace and dignity. Every time Rey wins a championship, he points to the sky for Eddie. He's spoken about Eddie in interviews with genuine emotion and love. He's kept that friendship sacred, even as WWE has tried to exploit it for storylines over and over again. And now his own son is out here doing the Guerrero shimmy while playing a disrespectful heel character, and Rhea has to watch it happen as part of the storyline. Think about that for a second. Put yourself in Rey Mysterio's shoes. Your best friend dies tragically. For 2 decades, you honor his memory in every way possible. You raise your son with stories about what an incredible man Eddie was. And then that son grows up and uses Eddie's legacy to get himself over as a villain who betrays his own family. How does that feel? How does Rhea reconcile that emotionally, even if it's just a storyline? Quick question for the comments, and I'm genuinely curious about this one. Is Rey Mysterio making a mistake by allowing this storyline to happen, or is he being a professional who understands the business? Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Some of you are going to say, it's just wrestling. It's just a storyline. Why are you so pressed about this? And to that I say, wrestling has always been more than just entertainment. Wrestling is about legacy. It's about respect. It's about understanding that these characters and these performers mean something to millions of people around the world. Eddie Guerrero's death devastated the wrestling community. Fans grieved. Wrestlers grieved. His family grieved in the most public way possible. When you invoke someone's memory in wrestling, especially someone who died tragically, you have a responsibility to do it with care. You can't just slap on their catchphrase and do their dance and call it storytelling. There has to be substance behind it. There has to be meaning. There has to be respect. And maybe that's what bothers me most about this whole situation. It doesn't feel like respect. It feels like exploitation. It feels like WWE looked at the list of things that generate emotional reactions from audiences and said, hey, you know what still works? Eddie Guerrero. Let's have Dominik do Eddie Guerrero things and watch the engagement numbers go up. Here's my final question for you, and this is the big one I want you to answer in the comments. Where's the line? At what point does using a deceased legend's legacy for storyline purposes cross from tribute into exploitation? Is there even a line anymore, or is everything fair game in modern wrestling? The reality is that Dominik Mysterio is trapped in an impossible situation. He's trying to establish himself as a performer, but he's doing it in the shadow of 2 legends, his father and his godfather. Using Eddie's legacy might seem like the easiest way to generate a reaction, but it comes with massive baggage and responsibility that I'm not sure he's equipped to handle. And WWE putting him in this position, knowing how controversial it would be, knowing how it would divide the fan base, knowing that it would stir up complicated emotions about loss and legacy and nepotism, that's the real problem here. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to comment below with your honest thoughts. Are you okay with how Dominik is using Eddie Guerrero's legacy? Do you think it's disrespectful? Do you think Eddie would approve? Do you think there are better ways this story could be told? Let's have a real conversation about this, because the wrestling community needs to discuss where the boundaries are when it comes to honoring the dead versus exploiting their memory for ratings. And if this video made you think, if it made you angry, if it made you want to defend Dominik or attack him, then share it. Get this conversation going. Wrestling Zone 1 is where we talk about the uncomfortable truths in wrestling, and this is about as uncomfortable as it gets. Drop those comments. Let's talk about it.